What's up, real MVPs? Ricky Widmer here, and welcome back to the Tuesday edition, another edition of MVP Games Live right here on either twitch.tv or on YouTube at MVP Entertainment. I am joined, as I always am, with my beautiful co-host. Today he is not just beautiful, he is also a little tired, Soapy Muffin. Soapy, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing great, pal. Didn't expect a little tired co-host today, but that
I mean, I almost slipped through the show, so
wouldn't be the first time, right? Wouldn't be the first time either of us did that, because I did that a couple times too.
yeah. So, totally my nap totally was planned to wake up during this. Wasn't just I fell asleep with reckless abandon and totally forgot to fucking set an alarm before I woke up.
Soapy sitting there like, okay, Ricky's not in the call yet. All right.
Oh yeah, no, just behind the scene, guys. I basically was like 5:35 is the cutoff. He ain't in here. I'm fucking going back to bed.
I ain't waiting up for him. Damn it! At least
I was up for like 5 minutes.
At least
and
when he's got to wait for me.
Here, I'm done.
When he's got to wait for me, at least he's got Dave and another show to get to after that. I got nothing.
Yeah.
Oh,
I got
man.
someone to make shitty food.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it's good food, right?
No,
not good food. But I hope today's topics are good topics. Well, I say that because today's lighter show. I mean, we're getting to the end of the year. Right now, I was also telling Soapy, it's kind of interesting because everyone's got their new consoles except for Soapy and I. Soapy by choice, me by utter misery and failure. Walmart announced, I saw today, that they're going to be selling more consoles next Wednesday. Best Buy starts selling them on Sunday. And Soapy, guess who's prepared to strike out? Guess who's prepared to strike out both Sunday and Wednesday?
You.
This guy right here, baby. This guy right here. But today's show, we got 4 topics. Before we get into everything, though, quick housekeeping. Number 1, if you have not joined the best community on the internet, you got to go ahead and do so. You're behind the 8 ball. The Discord for MVP. Best community on the internet. Join that link down below if you're on YouTube. ! Twitch into Twitch chat. Get you that link. Like I said, the best group of people you could ever want to talk to in one Discord, in one location. Go ahead and join that today. If you like the show, want to support us, patreon.com/MVPvids is how you go ahead and do that. You can also YouTube, link down below, or in Twitch chat, !Patreon gets you that link as well. We're on Twitch every Monday through Friday, twitch.tv/MVPvids. And we're also on YouTube, like I said earlier, at MVP Entertainment. And Soapy, 4 topics on the docket today. The first one, kind of big news, but also, to me, not surprising news, because this comes from Video Game Chronicle, and it's about Halo Infinite. So it says 343 Industries has told fans Halo Infinite won't be shown at December's The Game Awards. However, commenting on Reddit, 343 community director Brian Jared said the studio is hoping to provide a high-level update on the delayed game in the coming weeks before restarting the journey to release with fans again next year. Xbox Series X and S launched on November 10th with a lineup missing a new flagship first-party game. That position was meant to be occupied by Halo Infinite before it was delayed to 2021. Here's what Jared had to say. Right now, we're still going through the huge cascade of implications and ramifications to the release shift, and the team is now heads down working through nearly every facet of the game. Full disclosure, we don't have anything planned for the VGAs, but are hoping to offer at least a high-level update within the next few weeks so we can kind of restart the journey together after the holidays. Pulling together something like a demo or big beat for VGAs is an enormous amount of work and would cause challenges with current milestones of the holidays. I know it's hard to wait, but the team is going to make the most of this extra time, and we want to make sure we can put the best foot forward and commit to greater transparency and dialogue on the road ahead. we'll get there and get the train going again. Soapy, you're the Xbox guy. I'm just going to shoot quickly, ask you. Big deal, no deal, little deal. What's your thought with Halo not going to be at the Game Awards? And from this high-level update that they said they're going to release in the coming weeks, what are you looking for as an Xbox guy, as a Halo fan?
I don't think it's a huge deal that they're not going to the Video Game Awards.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, like they said, that they're not close to being able to.
Yeah.
And I'd rather not them do what they did last time when they showed Halo Infinite stuff, and you can tell like the game is not ready to be seen.
Are you talking about the
like,
stuff that we saw during the Xbox showcase?
Yeah,
that you and I talked about?
When everyone started memeing the fucking...
Okay.
The elite, like the brute that showed up on screen, like when everyone started memeing that.
Good point. Okay.
I think doing that, I think it's one of those things I'd rather just see the game closer to release rather than like see them rush a beta just for the beta not to be good, or even just something of seeing it and then being like, wow, dude, this doesn't look fucking good. I'd rather wait until later to be disappointed if they're gonna disappoint me, because at least I'm like, at least it's gonna be a beautiful disappointment.
But if you're going to be disappointed, won't you want to be disappointed in 2020? The already disappointment of a year?
That started in 2021, baby.
For me, it's like the VGA side of this is a no deal. Like, the only way it would be a little deal or a big deal is if Knightley and, Keighley, and the Game Awards thought they were going to get, like, if they had, like, okay, we've got the slot lined up, we're getting Halo out there, we've got, like, we're planning our show, and if Halo a month out was like, yo, bro, we're not going to be able to provide you what you want, and then basically they're scrambling, then it would be a big deal, but that doesn't seem to be the case here. Like, I would assume that Keighley is in contact with these studios all the time, and that they basically give them a heads up, like, hey, we don't have anything for the VGA. So, like, that's why I'm looking at this as, like, okay, it's a little deal in that sense, but it's a big deal in the sense of what we kind of put in the stock of the Video Game Awards, where it's kind of been the place where we kind of have that collection and that gathering of everyone across the industry, fans, players, people who are actually making the games, developing the games, in the games, that all of us can, like, gather together watching what it used to be in person. This year it's all going to be online digitally, but all of us getting together and having those big releases that we can kind of react to as a community. So in that sense, like, I guess it's a big deal, but it's not really a big deal because, like you said, Soapy, you want this game to be good if you're a Halo fan, and you don't want to be disappointed. Like, I think back to Spider-Man, or I think back to Avengers, two games that when they were announced, I was super hyped for. Love the Avengers, love Spider-Man, was absolutely all for them. Well, there was the Spider-Man stuff with the puddles look bad, and that one was kind of like an overreaction type thing. But people were freaking out when Sony put out that, like, oh, here's some gameplay. And it's like, oh, shit, those puddles don't look good. What does that mean for the game? Plus, on the Avengers side, when they announced that at, I want to say that was E3, the Square Enix presentation for E3, you even saw people go, all right, these Avenger models don't look right. Like, that was the big thing I remember talking with Johnny when we did the Rick and Johnny podcast of... people were freaking out that, holy shit, these Avengers don't look good. And if you're Halo, you don't want that. You want this game to be, obviously, any Halo game you want, like the Soapy, but, like, you want this Halo game to be well received. You want this game to hit, because not only was this supposed to be the one that hits right alongside your basic next-gen console, but also you want it to hit because Halo's like the top dog for Xbox. Like, when you say Xbox, the first thing I think of is Halo. Just like I'm trying to think with PlayStation. Like, it would basically be like Halo to Xbox would kind of be what Crash Bandicoot is to PlayStation. It's the OG. It's the original exclusive for that console, if I could say that word right.
Oh wait, sorry, what?
Yeah, did you zone out there, brah?
Oh yeah, just a little bit.
So I was basically saying that Halo, it's only a big deal if like you said, the trailer doesn't hit, because Halo's really important to Xbox.
Oh yeah, definitely. I do want to apologize for zoning out. It was I scrolled through Twitter, so I kind of just went into fucking my brain turning off. But
I thought, I'm like,
yeah.
shit, he either fell asleep or that internet died. One of the two happened.
No, dude, I wouldn't fall asleep. I sometimes don't fall asleep mid-conversation, but
Sometimes.
yeah, I think, yeah, sometimes. I cannot promise I have not fallen asleep in a watch long before, but that's besides the point.
Hey, I've done that before. I've done that a couple times.
Yeah. But yeah, I think worrying about the trailer, I think, is something that they need to focus on more, especially because, for instance, unless you want to push the game back again, I think full focus should be on, we want to make this game look good. We want it to play good. We want this to be a good game. Let's not focus on getting the public's eye on it, because if you do that, oh, you're drawing more attention. You're not focusing on making it a better game. You're focusing on like press releases and stuff like that, which you can do before the game comes out.
How bad would it be if they had to delay it again? Because like it's not a good thing if you had to delay it, but like how bad would it be?
I don't think it'd be insanely bad.
Okay.
But I think it's one of those things where obviously a lot of people begin to kind of get like a lot of cynicism with it when they see you delay a game. They're like, oh, so this game shit is what you're showing me.
Yeah. Yeah. And like also you get into the more you delay it, you get into that like cyberpunk territory. I'm not saying another delay would put Halo in this territory, but after you delay it again, and if you have to delay it again, that's where it's like, look at what we're seeing with Cyberpunk 2077, where like you mentioned, I brought it up like, oh, never mind that game, it should come out in a month, and you're like, well, we think it's going to come out in a month. Like, you don't want people to be like that, where it's like, well, Halo's supposed to come out here, let's see if it actually happens. The only thing I think that would be bad with a delay is if it has to delay again, and it's basically released like next November, then it's kind of the thing of like, wow, with the, like you said, like, okay, is this game going to be good? Because basically it's been a year since I basically was promised this game. But at the same time, to play devil's advocate, this studio, the pandemic and everything, isn't the only thing that it's dealing with. It's been dealing with, you had Tim Longo, who we talked about, left 343 Industries. He was the former creative director. That was in August of 2019 even. Then in October, we talked about this last month, you had the lead producer, Mary Olson. She departed from the studio. So it's like, these are two things that, with a pandemic and working remotely from home, when you're losing directors and producers like this, there are things behind the scenes that have to shift. So I wouldn't be surprised if Halo got another delay, but I'm not expecting it to get another delay, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to get delayed again.
No.
I think what's going to happen is whenever it gets closer to release date, that's when we'll start actually seeing gameplay for it again. Because I think at this point, they need to focus on refining the gameplay, refining the graphics, making sure it runs properly on the engine.
Yeah.
Rather than being like, hey man, let's put a trailer out. Because like obviously it's one of those things. It's a Halo game. People know it's going to come out.
Yeah. Well, is it basically like you talked about yesterday with Resident Evil? Like, is Halo the type of game that it's like, I don't care when it comes out, I just want it to be good?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's because Halo is one of those game franchises that it has such a devoted fan base. And like that's the thing that's terrifying with Halo is, like, I mean, Halo is a relatively older game. Like obviously not anywhere near as old as Resident Evil,
Yeah.
Because Resident Evil's old as fucking stone and sand.
Yeah. Well, it was Capcom was doing that way before fucking Xbox was even a thing. But yeah, it's just it'll be interesting to see what kind of happens with Halo Infinite. We just know right now won't be at the Game Awards. But Soapy, the next thing, and this is one that this next topic, I don't know how to feel about this. There's two ways I can feel about this. I don't know which one I should go with. So it was announced today that Immortals Fenyx Rising, the game from Ubisoft, that's basically from the same people that were doing the Assassin's Creed games. You and I, when they showed it off, were like, oh, it looks like cartoon Assassin's Creed, is basically what it looks like. Because it looks almost exactly like Odyssey, but cartoonish instead of realistic. Well, they announced today that there will be 3 DLC expansions, including Chinese mythology and new heroes. IGN has the article, and basically it says here, the first DLC will be a narrative-based DLC expansion, which is included in Immortals Fenyx Rising Season Pass. It's titled A New God, and sees Fenyx embarking on a new adventure in Olympus Palace. Fenyx will need to overcome the Trial of Olympians, which takes place in a beautifully crafted and challenging the vaults built by the gods in order to join the inner circle. I become, and sorry, got sidetracked there. Of the Pantheon. So that's the first one. Then the second expansion is called Myths of the Eastern Realm and is set in Chinese mythology. Furthermore, it will feature a new hero named Ku. It's Ku, so I'm assuming that's Ku, who must save mortals in a new mystical land at the frontier of the sky and earth. Ku will have a unique fighting style inspired by Chinese martial arts and different abilities from Fenyx. The third and final expansion is called The Lost Gods and also features a new hero named Ash, who was chosen by Fenyx to bring back the Lost Gods. This new adventure will feature top-down gameplay and all-new brawler combat. It will also take place on a new mysterious island where players will explore regions inspired by these lost gods to restore the balance of Earth. The season pass, all these are included in it, blah, blah, blah. But the thing that I ask myself, Soapy, is should I feel on the side of, okay, this is a Ubisoft game. This is just like for the Assassin's Creed games where before Odyssey, we knew what the DLCs were going to be. Like, hey, look up for these 3 DLCs. This is what we're going to plan with them. And the DLCs were fine. Or should I look at this on the side of what we saw with Avengers, where it's like, oh, we're going to do this DLC and that DLC, where it's almost like, let me get the game first. Let me get the game. Let me play the game. Then announce the DLCs. Don't promise too much before we even have the game in our hands.
Yeah, I view it more on the Avengers side, which is where I kind of have the worry of like, don't count your chickens before they hatch.
Mm-hmm.
And like obviously I know someone out there's like, holy fuck, dude, that's such a boomer goddamn saying, which is true. You know, that's fair.
Yeah.
But like for instance, I think the reason why that it's really bad to do this, like obviously it's showing people like, oh, you have plans for the future of the game.
Yeah.
If people don't care about your game now, you're setting a promise you have to release content for it.
Bingo. Like the Avengers were in an interesting position because we already, like, there was an excitement around the content of the game. People were already familiar with the Avengers. So you got Square Enix thinking, oh, people are going to be excited about that. Then the game came out and people were like, oh shit, this game kind of sucks. Whereas
Kinda. That game fucking blows.
If Immortal Fenyx Rising is the same way, it's like the thing, it kind of goes into what I was thinking of the new characters. Like, it's cool that you want to go to Chinese mythology and you want to have these new characters, but it's like you said, if I don't like Fenyx, like if I'm playing the game and I don't like Fenyx herself, what's going to make me want to play as Q? What's going to make me want to play as Ash?
I mean, my main worry is if just the game in total sucks, why would I want to pay for DLC to play more of the game I don't like?
Good point. I mean, also, too, the thing I'll ask you is with the third expansion, when they say this one's going to be a top-down gameplay and an all-new brawler combat, I almost wonder if that DLC, if people are going to have the, okay, this is not the game I paid for kind of a thing. And, like, I know it's simple of, like, well, if you didn't buy the season pass, like, okay, I just don't have to buy it. But, like, if you bought the season pass, you get it. It's like, all right, I like, let's say I like the base game, I like the first 2 DLCs, but then it's like, oh, here's a new top-down gameplay, and it's like, yeah, but this is not what the rest of the game is, and I bought this game because I wanted it to be the gameplay that I was shown in the trailers, not a top-down kind of a game that we mostly, like, when I think of top-down games, I'm thinking Game Boy, I'm thinking computer, like, RTS strategy games. I'm not necessarily thinking a third-party game from Ubisoft.
Well, no, I think it's more like an actual Ubisoft game, because I think
Okay.
it's the Ubisoft Studios making it.
Okay, I'm just trying to, like, for consoles, it wouldn't be considered a first-party game on Xbox.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
right?
It'd be a third party.
Okay.
Yeah. My whole worry with that part is more or less of, like, okay, like, obviously changing the style of the way the game plays, like, that's a little risky.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because, for instance, you know, if you, like, successfully pull off the first part, which you made Assassin's Creed, if you fuck this up, something's wrong.
Yeah.
You guys have been printing Assassin's Creed on a fucking photocopier for, like, 15 years.
And apparently Valhalla is really good. That's all I'm hearing. Except for the stuff we talked about last Friday, all I'm hearing is Valhalla is really good, and it's showing things that we've never seen in an Assassin's Creed before. And I really want Immortals Fenyx Rising to be just as good.
Yeah, but, like, for instance, if they fuck up the gameplay somehow, one, that's an oof, because they try up your fucking wheelhouse.
Yeah.
2, I think the reason that why, like, people can, like, Assassin's Creed can get away with having a shit game because it's such an established franchise, and someone's like, they'll bounce back. There'll be another one. I think with this one, it's changing up gameplay in a DLC for a game that you don't even know if you did the first system right.
Yeah, good point.
Like, that's a little slippery of a slope. Like, in my opinion, the way that they should have approached this is, obviously, they could have said, like, oh yeah, we do have a DLC roadmap, and just leave it at that. If people ask specifics, it'd be like, no, once the game releases, we will let you know.
So basically
that lets players know, if you hate this fucking game, you ain't getting the DLC.
Yeah, so basically, should you even, with your roadmap that you just laid out, is it just a, hey, we've got DLCs planned, or should they at least go, like, should they have at least been like, well, you know what, we got 3 DLCs planned for the first season pass? Or is that even too much, telling you how many DLCs there are?
To me, I think that's too much. I think it's just leaving it vague. Like, obviously, if people are paying for a season pass right off the fucking bat, yeah, you bet your ass, you better be fucking telling them how much they're getting.
Let's be honest, though, the only games that pulled that off are fucking, like, Call of Duty.
Yeah. It's mostly just, it's one of those things, the only reason I'm saying that they better be telling people how much they get. Mostly just so that I can see people are still fucking dumb.
Yeah.
And so that they don't get the Borderlands 3 treatment of, like, I bought the season pass, and I should get the new one for free. When literally the first one tells you exactly what you fucking got.
Yeah.
And you got everything in it. But that's besides the point. That's a different conversation for a different day.
Yeah.
I feel like...
Go ahead.
If you're not planning on... Like, for me, I would say, like, oh, you know, we will make a season pass available at some point. But I think at that point, just leave it to where, like, oh, you know, we have DLCs planned. And if people take the approach of, like, oh, well, they're gonna deceive us, they're gonna say there's multiple, they don't, this is one, it's like, well, no, if they tell you that, like, we have DLCs, like, they're kind of testing the water to see, like, okay, if this game fucking sinks, we'll, like, release one at most. Like, if the game succeeds, release them all. Because the problem with announcing like, oh, we have 3 DLCs made, people are expecting all three DLCs now.
To where you do make a good point. If the game, I'm not going to say flops, but even if it like doesn't hit expectations, you're now pigeonholed into those 3 DLCs. Now, the great side is if it does great, cool, you're going to make money off of those DLCs. Everyone will be happy. But like you said, we don't even know what the reception from this game is even going to be. We'll find out in about 3 weeks, I want to say. December 3rd is the release date for Immortals Fenyx Rising. I'm hoping it's a good game. It's looked like a game where, besides it being a cartoon Assassin's Creed, it looked like it has some promise. So I'm hoping it's a good game from Ubisoft. Moving on, Soaps, the third thing we're talking about today, PS5 exclusives. And there's an article on IGN talking about PS5 exclusives, and I'm just going to read what it says. It says, speaking to The Telegraph, Ryan, his name is Jim Ryan, CEO and president of Sony Interactive Entertainment. Ryan wanted to express concerns some had over PS5 games like Horizon Forbidden West, Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales, and Sackboy: A Big Adventure also continuing or coming to PS4. He says, the first thing to say is that our PS5 experiences and versions of these games are built from the ground up to take advantage of the PS5 feature set. He explained, so I think offering a PS5 version of these games for the PS5 community and then a PS4 version of these games for the PS4 community, I don't see what's wrong with it. Ryan previously spoke about the importance of the over 100 million PS4 owners and how it was crucial to keep serving these people for years to come, and he echoed these thoughts in the interview. We've got a community of PS4 gamers 100 million strong. It would be wrong to walk away from those people too early, and they've been engaged with their PS4s this year under lockdown to a greater extent than at any point over the course of the cycle. They're using their PlayStations. They're happy with their PlayStations. Why would we stop giving them games? Soapy, in your mind, why do you think there are people out there? Because obviously this question came up because there are concerns from people that there's PS4 versions of PS5 games. Should this even, like, I read this and I was like, should this even be a concern? Like, I almost had the thought of, like, what's it to you? Where it's like, if you have a PS5 game, a PS5, great, play it on PS5. But if you have a PS4, like Ryan said, and we've talked about before, with this generation, it might take longer than generations past for us to completely move on from the previous generation.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, in my opinion, with that, I don't think it's like, oh, just bring the exclusives over and that fixes that. Because obviously, for instance, everything going on in the world.
Yeah.
And the fact that right now, most people can't even get a fucking PlayStation or an Xbox.
Bingo.
I think it's one of those things of, like, I've always been of the mindset of, like, unless a game released, like, right at the fucking end of your lifespan, you don't need to bring it out again. Because obviously, like, Sackboy came out near the beginning, right?
Yeah, Sackboy, I think, was supposed to come out at the beginning and got delayed a little bit. I think that and Destruction All-Stars, I think, got delayed a little bit. Let's see. Sackboy, Big Adventure. Oh, no, it came out. Okay, Destruction All-Star was the only one that got delayed. Sackboy was pretty much from the start with PlayStation. Or are you talking about the original Sackboy?
I'm just talking about the fact of, like, in my personal opinion, you don't need to just, like, I think it's one of those things of, you don't need to constantly come out with, like, the first games that came out on PS4, you don't need to be like, oh, those exclusives need to come over. Yeah. I think that's fucking dumb. If you want to keep playing those, keep playing your PS4. Like, and I get it. It's one of those things where, like, I will say I'm probably in the minority with that. Of where I always say, like, keep the exclusives on the console they launched on, unless they came out at such a shit time.
Well, the one thing I'll say is the Sackboy game that's supposed to be on PS5 is supposed to be, let me see, I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be a brand new Sackboy game.
Okay. Yeah, I thought you were meaning like Sackboy that was on like the PS3 or
here,
something like
let
that.
me
Like
see.
if that game comes back, I'll just say you guys are clinging to fucking everything at that point.
So, from what it says here, Sackboy: A Big Adventure is a 2020 platform game. Blah blah blah. A spin-off of the Little Planet series. It follows Sackboy and features 3D platforming as opposed to 2.5D in previous entries. It was announced at the PS5 reveal event. So it's basically a newer, upgraded Sackboy game that is like, oh, it's a spin-off of Little Big Planet.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Like other stuff, like in my personal opinion, I just do stand by the fact of bringing old exclusives won't sell the new console.
Yeah.
The new console should sell itself.
Well,
if you are worried of people not buying your console, just fucking release more.
Yeah.
What a shocker, dude.
So the big question that I've seen online, and I'll ask you this, is God of War, where I've seen things on Twitter where Sony, developers of God of War, studio that works on it, can't think of the name right now, it's blanking me. Nobody's said anything about whether God of War will be on both PlayStation 5 and PS4. That to me is a telling sign. And the reason why it's a telling sign is I think you and I, even in past conversations, have basically discussed the fact of, well, we expect this to be a longer, like I said, this might be a longer gap between PS5 to PS4 than we've ever seen with other consoles, because I'm thinking of it in two senses, and this is why I'm kind of speculating on this, is number one, the pandemic. When are we going to get the fuck out of this? Like, I know for North America, that's where I can speak of America, because that's where we are. A lot of the scientists are saying that we're not even going to get a vaccine or be able to not produce, but like get the vaccine out to the people that it needs to go to until like April of May of next year, right around where God of War would be. So like we could still be in this shit all the way until the middle of 2021. Then on top of that, the fact that this is a big generational gap that we've never had between consoles before. Like this is supposed to be the generation that takes that first big leap into the future. So like I've always thought of combining those two things. Of course, maybe for most of 2021, we see games both on Xbox or both on, for example, PS5, PlayStation 4, but also Xbox Series S and Xbox Series 1. But Xbox, I guess, doesn't have to worry about this because of Game Pass. Like, most of their games are just on Game Pass. No matter what console you have, boom, you have Game Pass. So I guess this is just a PS5 thing because PS Now is not what Xbox Game Pass is. I think it's a telling sign, though, that God of War, they haven't said whether it'll be on both, because I wonder if Sony thinks, hey, let's wait and see what happens as we get closer to God of War. If there's something where we're out of this pandemic, and we can kind of switch over, they might make the switch around then of like God of War might be the first game we see where it's like, nope, just on PS5.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. I think that's what it should be.
Mm-hmm.
Don't dumb down your game because you want to put it on both.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I get it. Once again, limited amount of PlayStation 5s. I get it. You want to know what you tell PS4 players? You want to play the new game? Buy the console.
Yeah. I
mean, that's my whole thought process. Of I think the second you move to a next gen, just move on.
Yeah.
Like, don't cling to the past. Don't be like, oh, hey, we still care for you guys, because those people are going to be like, oh, okay, cool. As long as games are still coming out, I'm not moving on.
Yeah. I mean, really, and then this is the challenge that, I mean, it's going to hit PlayStation more than Xbox, I feel. but this is the challenge of releasing a console during a pandemic. Well, during the pandemic that's going on right now. Because, like, if you're saying it, like, I agree with you in the sense of you're not going to get people to move on. Like, JD also agrees. You're not going to get people to move on if you're catering to them. But are we in a spot yet where they can move on? That's why I feel like God of War might be the first one to say, well, sucks to suck. If you want it, PS5 it. Because, yet again, will we be getting out of that pandemic by that time? And kind of the last thing I was going to say, Soaps, is like, for example, Miles Morales, one of the big things I've seen different on like that front that completely blew my mind for what the next gen is, where the guy showed a clip of, okay, on my PS4, played a mission in Miles Morales, I finished the mission, and Miles just kind of sits there, and then it goes to a load screen, and he's like, you're waiting. You're waiting. You're waiting. You're waiting. It's about a 1.5, 2 minute like load screen. Boom, you're outside. And then he goes, okay, let me show you the same clip on my PS5. And Soapy, it blew my mind because he was in the warehouse, finished the mission. There was a little like, kind of like a sewer hole through the wall. Miles just flung his webs, kind of pulled, and then boom, went right through, and boom, you're outside. Zero fucking load screen. And I know that like JD brings up the updated Miles Morales. They fixed a lot of the glitches and bugs, but like that fucking blew my mind that it's like, holy shit. No more like when I was playing Spider-Man on the PS4 of sitting on the train. Like, yeah, it was cool. Oh, Spider-Man takes the train and stuff. There's zero load. It looks like the load screens are fucking non-existent when it comes to the PS5, which is what you want, and you want people to move into that next generation. So I do agree with you, Soapy. Eventually, PlayStation's going to have to play ball and say, well, I know it sucks, but you're going to have to move up to the next console. And Soapy, the last thing we're going to talk about, neither of you nor I have played this game, but I wanted to talk about it a little bit. It's called Call of the Sea. And it's one that kind of intrigued me because this is from PC Gamer. It said, Call of the Sea is an adventure inspired by Lovecraft, but it's no horror game. I'll just read a little bit of it. So, stepping onto Call of the Sea's gorgeous and mysterious island for the first time, I'm grateful to know I won't get the crap scared out of me. We've just run through October's spooky Halloween gauntlet and Amnesia's Rebirth and Phasmophobia, I hope I'm saying that right, because that game I always fuck up the name, are still fresh in my mind. So I've had my fill of horror games, but I'm down for some intrigue, some mystery, and even some unsettling sights. But I'm happy that Call of the Sea, while inspired by Lovecraft, isn't a horror game. I've got my hands on the prologue of Call of the Sea, the first-person adventure from developer Out of the Blue and publisher Raw Fury. You're playing as Nora, a woman stricken with a mysterious illness who is searching for her husband, Harry. Like any upstanding 30-year-old spouse, he undertook an expedition, or I'm sorry, 30s, meaning like 1930s spouse. He undertook an expedition to a tropical... Oh, it reloaded. Let me get back to PC Gamer. Always does this to me where it reloads on my tablet. Let's see. A tropical island in the South Pacific in hopes of researching a cure for Nora's sickness. And as often happens when someone takes a boat to a mysterious island, Harry never returned. So now Nora is retracing her steps, hoping to find out what happened to him and his crew. Islands, not even once. Soapy, the thing I want to ask with this game is, when I read this, the description intrigued me. It seemed like, okay, this game, I'm a story guy. Like, I love games that have a story to it. The only question I have about this, and this is kind of where the conversation comes in, if this is a game that has some Lovecraftian kind of ties to it or influence in it, will it take away from the game if it's not more on the horror side than on the just normal story side?
Yeah, that's where my concern comes in, because it's one of those things for anyone who doesn't know what Lovecraftian stories are. Lovecraft wrote, like, basically, like, I don't want to say extraterrestrial.
Like Cthulhu and stuff, right? That's what I think.
Like the Cthulhu mythos,
Yeah.
and stuff like that, like Dunwich horror and stuff like that. He wrote all of those. Like, he wrote like a bunch of Eldritch horror stuff.
Yeah.
I'm interested, but also concerned, because I think you can take influences from the style of his writing and spin it in a way, but I think it's one of those things of, at that point, is that even his writing anymore if it doesn't have the horror?
Yeah.
Like, that's because, like, for instance, who was the guy who wrote Great Gatsby? Is it F. Scott Fitzgerald or something like that?
Yeah, Fitzgerald, you're right.
Yeah, wouldn't it fit more with his, because he wrote stories in a similar time period? Like, that's my whole thought process of, like, if it involves water, that doesn't mean it's Lovecraft. Like, and the only reason why, like, I'm saying I'm concerned for that is because it's one of the things. Everything he wrote was horror. Like, that'd be like if I was like, oh, it's an Edgar. Like, I base this off Edgar Allan Poe, and it has nothing to do with Edgar Allan Poe beside, like, one thing. I talked about, like, a floorboard, or something like that.
Dude, it had a raven in it. Like, what do you want more from me?
You saw the raven. That's Edgar Allan Poe, baby. That's all I need.
Dude, the raven's name was Nevermore. Come on.
Yeah, but I think it's just one of those things of, like, I hope it's good. Like, I don't want to act like, oh, everything involved with, Lovecraft has to be horror, but the only thing is, name a story that he wrote that's not horror.
Yeah. No, that's
like the color out of space, horror. Anything involving Cthulhu, horror.
Yeah.
Anything about the Dunwich horror. Surprise, surprise, it's in the goddamn name.
Yeah, and that's like why I even brought this up for today's show and I'm sitting here looking at the gameplay in front of me, and it looks like your normal, like, first-person computer game kind of style. Although it is on console also, or will be. It just looks like that normal, like, what I would see, I don't want to say, like, Hello Neighbor, but, like, the hands are in front of you, you're walking around, okay, hover over that, gotta look to things to actually pick them up, where it's got some, like, puzzle aspects to it, and my only thing is, and yet again, the reason why I brought this up for conversation, Soapy, is because you're more, I don't want to say like an expert, but you're more of an expert on the Lovecraft stuff than I am. I just know he's the one that is linked with Cthulhu, and most of his shit is horror stuff. So, like, for me, I almost feel like if it's not horror, there's got to be something in the game. There's got to be something in the story that has, like, dark roots, if that makes sense. Or it makes you go, oh, holy shit. Like, that to me, if that happens, I was like, okay, I kind of get it. But, like, there's a side of me where while making this game, did they sit there and go, well, we want to base this story off of this, but we don't want to pigeonhole us into, like, oh, it's a horror game. You know what I'm saying? Like, but that's the thing. Can you make a Lovecraftian game, or a game styled in Lovecraftian style that isn't horror? I think it would be extremely hard to do that without people going, I see a loose tie here. It's not really a strong enough tie.
Yeah, and obviously, like, that's also just the struggle with adapting Lovecraft into games as well. Like, for instance, I don't think there's ever been a successful adaptation of Lovecraft, and it's because, like, it's that feeling of Lovecraft's work is so loved by many that, like, oh, if you fuck up one thing, you're gonna have the Lovecraft nerd all over you. They're gonna be like, well, actually, in this book on like page 44, on third paragraph down, you get those people. No, those people are annoying. But like for instance, I'm trying to think. I think it's games called like the Call of Cthulhu game, which is based off of the tabletop, which obviously then is based off of the Lovecraft because
Yeah.
he wrote Cthulhu. It's people are playing through that, and they were like, "Why is like there's horror in it, but it's like this is so loosely Lovecraft that like if it's like people for some reason have to like ham fist shit with Lovecraft in two Lovecraft games. It's like no, just use concepts he made. Like for instance, and I'm trying to remember because there was a time of I think it was during October. I always do a thing of where basically I basically call it Lovecraft month. Of where like I'll just watch a bunch of Lovecraft movies.
Yeah.
Or like movies that are inspired by it. Dude, they are so fucking ham-fisted with trying to get people to know like this Lovecraft baby. There's literally a character in one of the movies named Lovecraft.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm like, how much can you fucking ham-fist that thing in there?
And I'll ask you kind of like what Dave said, and Dave, correct me if I'm kind of taking this your Twitch chat in a wrong way of Dave says it's on a pedestal. Like, is that a problem with Lovecraft where people and those fans that you talked about put it on a pedestal to where it's like, we will defend it no matter what. It's you that are wrong in this case. Like, is that why you're going to get like the mob coming after you if you fuck it up?
Yeah, well, it's also because it's one of those things of and I probably look at some of these fans who get pissed off at me. 90% of people who defend Lovecraft's writing have never actually read it. No, and I'm being serious. I've read Lovecraft's books. They are hard to get through. Not because the whole language barrier of like early 1900s difference, but more of Lovecraft was stupidly fucking racist, and it is really hard to get through there.
So you're saying it's maybe a little bit of a hipster thing where it's like it's cool to like Lovecraft.
Yeah, like the idea of Lovecraft is cool as fuck, dude. The writings, on the other hand, oh boy, because I already told you what his dog's name was before. If that doesn't give a sign of already, I'm not going to say it on the show.
No, I wouldn't. I know you've told me. I remember. I do remember. I'm not saying it. I remember. It was I remember.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not repeating that.
No.
I also don't want to. I mean, I was about to say I don't want to encourage people. Me encouraging people they're gonna do it anyways. But
look it up.
Yeah, but it's one of those things that it's the idea of Lovecraft is so romanticized because it's one of those things that most people haven't read it. Like we have this idea of the Cthulhu mythos, but that's also because other people have added on to that over time. Like, for instance, if you go back and read the original fucking Cthulhu, literally all we know is, hey, Cthulhu is just this thing that exists and drives people insane. And that's it.
We
didn't have a visual. Yeah, like, we didn't have a visual. We didn't know he was a giant squid. Yeah. We didn't know that. We didn't know that, like, oh, hey, there's culture on Cthulhu. It was basically just the entire Cthulhu book was someone trying to figure out, okay, what the fuck is a Cthulhu?
No.
It's one of those things.
Go ahead. I know you weren't done.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I think the pedestal comes in of people have this romanticized version of what the Lovecraft universe is, of where, for instance, like in any medium, it is super hard to replicate it because people who have never read the books, people who don't understand what the message of the Lovecraft books are. Like, the whole thing with Lovecraft is it's fear of the unknown. That's why, for instance, he made, like, that fucking, like, they're basically like, oh yeah, there's some big fucking spooky demon god thing in space, but we don't know where it is. Or like, oh, he plays off of the fears that people have. For instance, it's Cthulhu plays off the fear of the ocean. Because it's one of those things that obviously, a little fun fact in case people don't know this, we know more about the surface of the moon than we do the ocean. So obviously, for people who are scared of the ocean... I
definitely believe that.
Yeah. It's like, for people who are scared of the ocean, that's fucking terrifying. Of like, that thing is there. That's all the way up there. Why the fuck do we know more about that than that thing?
Okay, can I go big brain Ricky scientist here, who's not really a scientist, and kind of tell you why? My theory of why is the ocean is huge, but like land is two-dimensional, where it's like once you cover everywhere on the moon, it's like, okay, I know what the moon is. The ocean is more three-dimensional, where it's like, oh, it's big. It goes on for these many miles, but then you also got to think, oh, how deep is that motherfucker? And that thing goes fucking deep, like so deep to where it's like, yep, light can't get down here anymore.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where also it doesn't help that gravity will squish you like a fucking grape.
Yep, the pressure as you get lower. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And even at that, like, for instance, that's kind of where, like, that's where the appeal of Cthulhu comes from. Especially with the way that others have spun it since his stories.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, Cthulhu's whole thing is he could be anywhere in that big, vast motherfucker.
Yeah.
And we have no idea.
Mm-hmm. And really,
he could be sitting at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, which people are scared of because that's a big fucking hole in a big fucking hole.
And really, because of how big and deep the ocean is, you don't know how big he is.
Yeah. That's why, for instance, like, there are times where, like, people do the whole thing of, like, he's, like, fucking, like, 3 times the size of Godzilla and shit like that. Like, there's people who do that.
Yeah.
There's people who there was one iteration, and obviously I don't know if it's an official writing or not, where he's not even a real thing. He's just an item that was just floating around in the ocean and someone found it.
Okay. Yeah, that's...
Where then, for instance, obviously then there's other shit where, like, it's space, and then because there are people who are scared of space as well, because once again, it's the same thing with the ocean.
Mass.
Vast. Don't know what the fuck is out there.
Hey, man, it's like I told you in a watch-along, I fucking asked my mom one day, because, my family brought up on religion and shit, and I was just like, hey, Mom, you ever think that, like, maybe God, like, we weren't the only ones he created? My mom goes, yeah, of course, he created animals. I'm like, no, not what I'm talking about. Like, you think he created aliens? And then he was like, you know what? I want a side project. Earth is that side. Like, Little Dicky-esque, where it's like, was Earth just a side project for him? Like, that's the kind of shit that I think about from day to day that comes into my mind. But... any final thoughts, Soapy, on Call of the Sea, Cthulhu, Lovecraft, anything?
It's more or less kind of just I'm interested to see the approach they take.
And the story.
But
I think the story could be interesting. It's just, is it going to be Lovecraft?
Yeah, like, is this going to be so loosely Lovecraft that, like, if people don't like the idea of you making a Lovecraftian game, you could be like, oh, no, this wasn't Lovecraft at all, no!
Oh, no, it was a normal game. It wasn't Lovecraft whatsoever. It wasn't horror at all. But
It's just...
Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
It's more or less of, like, the reason why that I'm so worried about it being like that is if you borrow ideas from Lovecraft, if that does not inherently make you a Lovecraftian game. Yeah. Because, for instance... Cthulhu is in so many goddamn games, or a version of Cthulhu, that doesn't make them Lovecraftian.
I mean, he's
if
in
you
Smite.
Don't explore...
Is Smite a Lovecraftian game?
Well, I mean, Smite's a different example. That's a MOBA.
Yeah.
But, like, for instance, with... like, it's one of those things of, in those games, if you don't explore that same thought process of, like, the storytelling in a Lovecraft game, just because Cthulhu's in your game doesn't mean it's Lovecraftian. Like, for instance, if you don't explore the fact of, like, the fear of the unknown in your game, if it involves Cthulhu, like, obviously it doesn't have to just be fear of the unknown. There's also, for instance, like, the book Color Out of Space, also fantastic fucking movie, mind you.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've watched it, but
no,
it is a good fucking movie. It's one of the actual good Nicolas Cage movies. So.
Oh, there's not many of those.
Yeah,
Family Man? Is it better than Family Man?
I'd have to watch Family Man again.
I was gonna say Family Man is.
This is one of the few times that. This is one of the few times when, like, crazy man Nicolas Cage works. But that's besides the point. That's for a different time. It's if you don't explore something like that of what change does to you over time, and introduce stuff like that of where. You just only use hey, here's Cthulhu, here's a couple things that you recognize from Lovecraft universes, here you go, have fun. Totally Lovecraft game. It's like, it's hollow. You don't touch on the same thing that Lovecraft would touch on.
Yeah.
For instance, it's no one's perfect, and that's the main thing in his writing that a lot of people do not realize. Everyone has a secret, and those secrets will be used against you when you go and do shit you ain't supposed to be doing. When you're trying to fight
like
Cthulhu,
a blackmail thing?
Well, not so much with that, but it's like, for instance, it's basically, it's your vices and things that, like, kind of like a sin.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, if you're an alcoholic, like, when and mostly they do this in like the older Lovecraftian stuff as well, like of when you start being affected by the effects of looking too much into Cthulhu,
Yeah.
you begin to turn to your vices more.
Okay.
Like, for instance, like if you're an alcoholic, you drink a hell of a lot more than you would before.
Yeah. No, I get you.
And basically, it's as the stress builds up, you build into your vices more, to where you lose yourself in the process of trying to find something new.
Okay.
That's the whole thing with the fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
That's the whole premise of his writing is, hey, there is shit you don't need to know.
Yeah.
But it's human nature to find out what we don't want to know.
Okay.
Yeah. But then also it just so happens there's a giant fucking Kraken thing at the end of it, so
also
maybe I don't want to know.
Because you don't know, Family Man was a great movie, year 2000. Nicolas Cage was in it. The film centers on a man who experiences what his life might have been if he made different decisions earlier in his life. Basically, it's like the whole thing of like he's living this one life where he's like a crappy like insurance salesman, and it's like, oh, I wonder what would have happened in life if I married that chick. And he's basically able to see, hey, what would my life have been like if I made that different decision? So, yeah, it's one of those movies with Nicolas Cage. Fucking love it. It's a dime a dozen. Go watch fucking Family Man if you haven't seen it. But that's going to do it for MVP Games Live. Thank you guys for everything you do. Last time, though, join the Discord if you haven't already. Link down below. It's the best best community on the internet. I almost said best entertainment. I guess it could also be the best entertainment on the internet as well. Twitch or Discord gets it into Twitch chat. If you want to support us, patreon.com/MVP vids is how you go ahead and do that. Again, link down below or Patreon into Twitch chat where we are live every Monday through Friday, twitch.tv/MVP vids. We're also on YouTube at MVP Entertainment as well. That's going to do it for Soapy and I. We'll be back tomorrow. And tomorrow, we already know what the show's about. Apparently, Game Awards, the nominees will be announced early in the morning, about 11 o'clock Central Time. Soapy and I for Games Live, we're going to pick our winners. We're going to go through each and every category, picking our winners, making our predictions for the Game Awards that will happen. I think it's the 10th of December. Just a month away, Soapy. We're a month away from the Game Awards, but that's going to do it for us. If you're on Twitch, MVP Sports Live, a big MVP Sports Live is coming up next, so don't click that X button. Stay right here on Twitch. We'll be coming up shortly right after this, but for everyone watching, thank you for what you do, and as always, have a good day, everybody.
Bye.